Excellent! In this video, we are going to run the installation script of Drupal. Let's get started. Marvelous! After you have installed and configured your local development environment, and after you have installed the Drupal core codebase using Composer, you are now ready to witness the magic of installing Drupal. Following the steps required of your local development environment, go ahead and start it, and then open your Drupal site in the browser of your choice. The first time you open up your Drupal site in your browser, you should be presented with this classic installation screen. The installation can be found at your site /core/install.php in the URL bar. You may at first see a warning that the connection is not private due to an invalid certificate or similar. Accept and continue as demonstrated here. That warning may occur if you are accessing your local site through the HTTPS protocol from a local certificate. Great! Once we are confidently at this install screen, take a moment to look over the page. You'll see the Drupal version that you are installing in the upper left corner. At the time of this recording, it is Drupal 9.1.0 for me. Here on the left, under the Drupal version, we can see the 6 broad phases of installing and initiating Drupal. These are choosing language, choosing the installation profile, having the installation script verify that Drupal can be installed because its technical requirements are fulfilled. Then, the installation script may ask you for your database connection details. Now, as a point of note, if you are using a modern local environment such as Acquia Cloud IDE, Lando, or DDEV, the setup of database is already taken care of for you. So in my case, since I am using DDEV, this installer will breeze past the setting up database phase and immediately begin the 5th phase of installing the site. The final phase of the installation is a basic configuration of the site. In the center here is an option to choose an installation language, such as Hindi, Japanese, Korean, Spanish, or French, among many others. It is spectacular to point out that the translations of Drupal are actually open source contributions from nearly 8,000 incredible contributors around the world. Let's briefly take a look at these amazing efforts by visiting localize.drupal.org. As we can see, some languages, such as Ukrainian, German, and Dutch, are more strongly translated than other languages, for example, such as Maori, Filipino, or Japanese. If you are looking to get involved in Drupal and you are fluent in languages other than English, contributing translations are a significant way to get involved. Looking at these quick statistics, currently, there are more than 900,000 strings or phrases to be translated. Your help with translation is appreciated. Fantastic effort from you in becoming aware of Drupal's translations. Heading back over to our installation screen of our local Drupal site, let's continue on. If you were to select another language and click Save and Continue, then the installation would proceed in that chosen language, and the administrative backend of Drupal would also be in that language. For demonstration, I will save and continue with the French language selected. Notice how the entire interface changes language, but the form stays the same. As this course is taught in English, if you wish to follow along exactly, ensure that English is selected. For me, since I have already continued in French, I must correct the URL to the initial path of core/install.php and start the installer again. So, without further ado, let's begin. Choose your preferred language and click Save and Continue. Nice! Here, we are prompted to select the installation profile. This ultimately determines what features will be available to us as site builders immediately after this installation has finished. By default, there are 3 options: the standard profile, which is what we will use for this course, Then there is the minimal profile, and there's also the tasty demo umami profile, which I encourage you to try and install after you have successfully completed the steps of this video. I'm showing a dollop of the umami profile to whet your palate. For us, we will begin using the standard profile, so ensure that is selected. Before I click Save and Continue, note that because I am using a modern Docker-based development environment with ddev, the next two phases of Verify Requirements and Setup Database phase will automatically and quickly be completed, and will start the install phase systematically. Here, in the Install Site phase, the installation script is creating the tables in the database based upon the requirements of the previously selected standard profile configuration we chose earlier. Most of what you see here is the creation of database tables, which Drupal core requires to function. This is why it indicates that it is installing a certain module or another. Be assured that the feedback provided here is more of an indication of progression, and it is not really technically significant feedback. Wait patiently until this phase completes. Awesome! We have arrived at the final phase of installation. Here, we establish foundational information specific to our Drupal installation. Take note that all the details provided here at this time can be changed later if needed. First, let's get into the habit of fully reading every status message that Drupal so courteously provides. As this warning message tells us, all necessary changes to site's default and site's default settings.php have been made, so you should remove write permissions to them now in order to avoid security risks. If you are unsure how to do so, consult the online handbook. Right off the bat, we encounter some essential details about the workings of Drupal. Notice that this message specifically highlights the directory of site's default and the file of site's default settings.php. We'll learn more about these locations later. For now, just make a mental note that site's default is important. Here is a haiku. Site's default is where configuration settings are likely to be. Harmonious, I know. It's tempting to create your own haiku impromptu, but this first text box is invoking Yoda and calling out, "You will find only what you bring in." The site name for our course is Waterfall Handbook. Type it out, will I. Next, this site email address is the email address that Drupal will use to send email on your organization's behalf. So typically, you will want to enter a predetermined generic email address. Since this is a demo site for learning, you should enter a generic email address such as example@example.com or an email address you have control over. I'm going to be as realistic as possible, and I'll enter navigator@waterfallhandbook.com, for example. So these two fields conclude the site information section. Continuing on, we have the site maintenance account details. Before we blissfully enter details here, realize that what this is calling the site maintenance account is actually user 1 of the site, also known as the super user. In the real world, this is the most attemptedly hacked user of all Drupal sites. The reason is that this user has every Drupal permission available to it, so choose carefully. Best practice advises not to choose the username of admin, because that name is so commonly chosen that it has a well-archived, embarrassing history of being a default username and thus a commonly hacked username. So choose something that you or a password manager will remember. I will choose the username of course admin, but you could try admin_random number or anything else you deem appropriate. Next is the password. Obviously, you need to enter a very strong password here. Drupal provides its own strength indicator here to guide you. Often, strong passwords cannot be remembered, so use a password manager if you need to. Be sure to repeat the password, just to convince yourself that you or a password manager is capable of remembering the strong password and that it's typed correctly. Next is the email address of this super user account. This is the email address that will receive any password reset attempts. I will enter my personal email of dallas.ramsden@acquia.com. Rockin'! That completes the site maintenance account section. Next, we have the regional settings. Choose the default country and time zone of where you or your organization and user base are primarily located. Regional settings mostly impact the date and time format that is displayed to users. Finally, the update notifications section. There are only two options here, both self-explanatory. For a local site, I recommend to not receive email notifications. These email notifications will be sent to the site maintenance email address, and these occur anytime an update to Drupal core or any installed contributed module or theme are available. On a production server, I usually choose to receive these update notifications, as occasionally they contain security update notifications. But for our purposes of learning, let's unselect the option to receive email notifications. Beautiful! Before we click the Save and Continue button, double check everything. Remember that because all of this is configurable at a later time, the most important thing to get correct are the site maintenance account details, the username and password. When you're confident they are correct, click Save and Continue. Supreme! Lovely, congratulations. You have installed a local instance of Drupal. Notice this warning message once again provided by Drupal. All necessary changes to site's default and site's default settings.php have been made, so you should remove write permissions to them now in order to avoid security risks. If you are unsure how to do so, consult the online handbook. Now, because this is a local development install, I am going to ignore this message. However, if this was a production server or other environment, absolutely I would make sure that security risks are avoided. Site's default and site's default settings.php. What was that haiku again? Site's default is where configuration settings are likely to be. Congratulations! Next, leveraging only the innate power of Drupal, let's turn this install experience into an amazing Drupal site about waterfalls. Here we go! Happy learning!